Hey, it's Hunt Mailbox, a video series where I get to answer all your questions and crazy ideas for Hunt and beyond. If you want to ask a question that I might answer in a future video, well, ask it in the comments. Just mark it with Mailbox so I can find it. And as usual, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of these future Hunt discussions. Okay? And with that out of the way, our first question comes from JP Collector, who says, how would you feel about more blunt weapon variants? The Obrez Mace is one of the most fun and visually interesting weapons in the game, along with the Officer Brawler. Having more blunt variants allows people to semi-comfortably run kits without melee tools, which is extremely entertaining and can be a unique challenge. I've seen suggestions for good blunt weapons being the Spectre Compact, which I would really like, and a whole new club melee. Well, JP, if you watched my Obrez video, you might remember that I said the mace is the only blunt melee weapon that you can buy in the store. Obviously, I dropped the Officer Brawler from that. But really, those are the only two you can buy in the store that you can equip in your primary and secondary slot. The rest are tools like the dusters and the knuckle knife, which are great, but you can only put them in a tool slot. I imagine Crytek is already working on something to rectify this, but since we haven't seen anything publicly, I will speculate a little bit. So the Mosin Obrez mace cost $310. So I think if they were going to add another mace variant, it would need to be a gun in the cheaper side of the spectrum. The Spectre Compact is $164 Hunt dollars, so maybe that is cheap enough. But I think the biggest contender for a mace variant is the Caldwell Rival, which costs $100. The reason I say the Caldwell Rival is a good pick is because it can't benefit from levering like the Terminus, and it can't benefit from bullet grubber like the Spectre. So it doesn't really have a whole lot going for it, except when used with like slug rounds or within like 5 meters. It also doesn't have any variants aside from the hand cannon. So I think we might see a Caldwell Club or a Clubwell in the future because it just makes sense and it fills a niche. Whether they do the full version or the hand cannon, I'm not sure, but I could see the long version making sense because no other gun is a blunt melee 3 slot. But I don't know, maybe Crytek has a reason that they haven't added more blunt melee weapons. I'm not sure what that answer would be. I think if blunt melee became too prevalent, the immolator may be less threatening, and maybe Crytek doesn't really want that. I don't know. But for me personally, it makes sense that the Caldwell Rival gets a club attachment of some sort. And if not that, if it's not a combination weapon, maybe some other melee tool. Right now you can use the combat axe in the store, but you can't use the hammer, which you can pick up in the game. So even adding that to the store could be a nice addition. So to answer your question, yes, I want more blunt melee weapons, but I think Crytek have to make sure it fills a specific role. The next question comes from Bilbo Swaggins 19, who says, how would you feel about an Alofs variant of the Romero? The Alofs would allow more ammo inside single shot shotguns. It fits the timeline and could be cheaper but worse than the Spectre. It would have a slower fire rate and no longer allow for 2 different ammo types. It could have a shortened barrel, so it could be cheaper than the Spectre like in reality. So, a little peek into the world of moderation, you get to see a lot of ideas from the community. And in the case of the Alofs, you get to see this one particular idea a whole lot. Every few months, someone new discovers the Forgotten Weapons channel and posts it in the Discord or subreddit. So this question is constantly in the community consciousness. For me personally, I don't see the point of the Alofs other than that it looks cool. Before you grab your pitchforks, thinking about how we just handled the Clubwell, what would the Alof bring to the table for the shotgun category? It would have to be an expensive Romero because obviously if it was cheaper, there would be no point in taking the Romero. But the whole point of the Romero is that it is cheap and effective at ranges that the other shotguns aren't. And on top of that, there are other shotguns that can do what the Alofs would do. The Spectre has a tube, and the Terminus can be rapid fired. So the Alof would exist to edge those other shotguns out of place, I guess. I don't know. And I think the Alofs would have to be a more expensive variant, which means it would be making the cheapest, most effective shotgun more expensive and cumbersome, and I just don't see why. I think what people really want from the Alofs is this cool mechanism, and I agree. This thing is really cool. It's a nice piece of kit, but I would rather see a cool mechanism implemented on a more occult weapon other than the Romero. What is that weapon? I don't know. But for me personally, the Alofs does not seem necessary. However, I could be wrong, and maybe Crytek would do it just for the memes, but I think they try to add things that will offer a new experience in the game, and I'm not sure what that new experience would be with the Alofs. However, I am all for adding things because they look cool. So, if Crytek said that this must be in the game because it is just a neat piece of history, well, I wouldn't be too mad about that, but for me personally, I don't see the point in adding it to the game. The next question is from Game Memo, who says, what about a tool or consumable that would allow you to block a normal size window made of wood and destroyable? Probably one per person, and it could take like 5 to 6 seconds to place. This is an interesting idea. As far as I'm aware, the only deployable tools in Hunt are the traps that you can set on the ground, like the concertina and the alert trip mine. Would I be open to more deployable tools? Sure. I could see this being a really handy tool in some compounds, especially on ground floor entrances like at Chapel and Stillwater, where the windows are broken. If you are worried about being flanked, you could just slap one of these barricades up and at least hear when the enemies want to enter that side of the compound. Also, it's made of wood, so I assume it can be destroyed in all the usual ways that the green window shutters can. And I could see how that would be really powerful. But I have a few issues with the idea. One, from the implementation standpoint, now every window has to be interactable in some way. I suppose it could work like the ammo box, where you just slide the little ghost box around until it's green and then you deploy it, but the devs would have to develop some sort of system to ensure the barricade is over a window. That sounds like a lot of work. Like, how many windows are there on a map? My other concern is that in trios, this could make it overwhelmingly difficult to attack a bounty compound. If all 3 people in a party bring a window and have the ability to hit toolboxes for more and have all these other concertina and poison traps, that's just a lot of stuff to break through. I feel like it would start its own little Cold War on breaching gadgets, and then we would have something like Hunt Siege Down, and I just don't know that that would be good. And in addition to that, most windows already have green shutters. So how many windows could you actually use this on really? I mean, it sounds like a cool idea, don't get me wrong. Maybe I'm dumb and next update Crytek is going to be like, hey, check out these barricades. That is totally possible. But the more I think about it, the less I want it in the game, because I could just see so many potential issues with bugs, or it being abused, or compounds being basically unenterable unless you have 13 dynamite at your disposal. So for me, personally, it's a no on this tool, but I think there is room for more deployable tools in the future. The next question comes from Spent Parch, who says, what about a trait that renders the vocal sounds your hunter makes when they take damage or die to complete silence? It would make people second guess if they actually killed you or not in certain spots like bushes and behind cover, making it great for team fights to make the enemy players paranoid that you're still alive and just overall confusion. It might also hide your position if you take damage from a grunt or take fall damage. Experienced players would probably fall for it less, but I think it's a good idea. So, I chose this question for a very specific reason. For the longest time, I thought Crytek was operating under the assumption that hunter sounds were the holy grail of Untouchable. But in the most recent patch 1.7.2, the devs changed it to where the decoys now create hunter footsteps on impact. So maybe those audio cues aren't necessarily as untouchable as I thought. So for your trait idea, I assume this trait would cost like 6 to 8 points because it's so powerful, and it would make your hunter damage sounds either silent or much less audible. And while I see that this could maybe add to the suspense of the game, like you never really know when you're safe, for me, it's a no, but with good reason, I think. One, this would only benefit hunters you can't see, so people in a compound or hiding in a bush. And honestly, I feel like we already see so much complaining about camping. Imagine a trio of canes that now don't even signal if they've died, so you can't see them and you can't hear them. I just don't know that you would have fun being SEAL Team 6'd by these gray blobs in the trees. However, although I don't want it as a trait, perhaps there is another decoy that could create a fake death sound, like say the Chaos Bomb. I have no idea how that works really. Maybe there's like a kazoo taped to it or something. I don't know. But I think it is okay to rethink what is sacred in the game. I just wouldn't want it to be detrimental to the normal combat. And I think being able to hear if you killed someone is just too important within a compound. That being said, if Crytek make a decoy with the ability to fake a death cry, like at the end of a Chaos Bomb, it could sound like a real fight happened, I could be open to that idea. Also, on the last mailbox episode, we talked about a roaming boss, and maybe if there was a boss that could imitate the death of a hunter, that could be cool. So, although I am shooting down this idea of manipulating death sounds as a trait, I am open to there being more fake death sounds in the game, as long as it was done in a way that couldn't be abused or just got kind of old. Anyway, those are just my opinions. You are welcome to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments if you haven't done that already. A lot of you probably have. Also, come join my Discord and we can talk about these ideas more in depth if you want to do that. But until the next video, goodbye.